He looks so solemn. The Prime Minister is likely to meet the King and Queen. I was reading about everything that's going to be happening today, and holy crow, they are like, we're talking 21 gun salute. Every pomp and circumstance they could pull out, they've pulled out.
It's the king. What do you expect?
Well, I think it's more than that. I think it's the political.
Oh, absolutely. This is all politics. This is all politics. So I'm
Well,
not
and
surprised by this at all.
As somebody
Of
said,
course, the national anthem with the prime minister there being greeted formally. I don't want to put thoughts into his head, but I feel like you could see the weight of his job there for a moment, where he realized, as David pointed out, 80 days later, what he's got himself into, which is having to follow through on some big promises for the country.
That's a good way to put it.
This
What has he
Tuesday
gotten himself into?
inside the Senate? We
I
are
would be
standing
like,
by. We're a little bit delayed here in terms of the
perhaps
beginning of the parade, where the royals are going to arrive shortly at the Senate there. They will do similar things to what you just saw from the Prime Minister, an inspection of the guard, and a greeting, of course, by various VIPs and dignitaries, including, of course, the Prime Minister. Former Prime Ministers also expected here today on the floor of the Senate, as well as Supreme Court justices.
So the research I did, the King and Queen are at the Senate of Canada building right now, or at least they were, and they are going to be going down Wellington Street and going to the
sort of an unusual move. Who have also
what's the building called? Because they're under renovations in the regular one, and so they're heading to the
today
Senate.
instead of doing photographs. Carolyn, I don't know if that's it's certainly unusual for here.
Well, for King Charles III, this is very
so
important.
Parliament will be in the House of Commons right now, and they have to be summoned and ask permission to come and see the King and Queen.
Studying the royal collection of art. So
and they can't just barge in, so he bangs 3 times, and he can't open the door. He has to wait until they open the door, then he asks them if they'll come, and then they will follow. And it's symbolic of the tension between the monarch and Parliament, which I thought was fascinating. Oh, here we go.
To paint and draw, we're not keeping him busy enough as King of Canada, I would say. So, yeah, glad we've got others on hand. There you can see some of the people lining the streets of Wellington in front of, that is the East Block, where there are a number of offices are, and then the Center Block, which of course is under renovation for the next while. Lots of people singing the anthem. You can see here the RCMP arriving. That is probably the Governor General, if I'm not mistaken. When the King arrives in the Senate, the flag of Canada will come down on Center Block, even though Center Block is not being used right now, and the flag for the King will go up.
Interesting.
I mean,
I can't help wondering
to show how Canada is different. And how it is part of our culture and identity is different.
I mean, there are going to be people that are going to be griping about the price tag for this, absolutely. But I don't know that we had a choice. I don't know that we had a choice. We had to do all this pomp and circumstance to differentiate us from our neighbors to the south.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a statement, and I think the only ones who are going to gripe about it is maybe the Conservative Party.
Oh, the gripe about it, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, they're going to gripe about spending any money. That goes without saying.
Yeah. I was watching Steve Boots, a YouTube content creator, and it was really interesting. Like, he was saying, there's a reason. Oh, there he is. there's a reason why he hasn't been asked before, and why it's been since 1977 that they have come to read the speech from the throne. And it's because historically we kind of downplay our tie to the monarchy, but because of what's going on in the South, that we want to strengthen that tie to the world.
Don't worry, we've got cameras everywhere. There's a million cameras. And of course, they're in this state landau with the Governor General and her husband, David. Yeah.
Because there's a Newfoundland connection to everything.
Yeah.
The driver of the landau, the driver of the carriage carrying the King and Queen and the Governor General and Whit Fraser to the Senate is Sergeant Jeremy Dawson, who's a third-generation Mountie from St. George's, which is a town on the west coast of the island of Newfoundland, the beautiful province of Newfoundland and Labrador. This is a town southwest of Stephenville. About 1,100 people live there. It's tiny. It's one of the small, rural towns in my home province. So the confluence of events that, took a third-generation police officer from a community of 1,100 people to be driving the King to the speech from the throne. That's an interesting backstory.
Yeah,
I didn't know that happened.
Well, and if today is about symbolism, those kinds of things are chosen for a reason. So the state landau here there are 28 horses here, is what I'm trying to say. 28 RCMP horses, 14 before and 14 after. And the King and the Queen in that state landau as they make their way just a few blocks from where we are here in front of Center Block, past the Prime Minister's building and down to the Senate. We haven't seen many shots of them yet. It's mostly about the horses and the RCMP, but we will shortly. Of course, this is the moment that people on the streets have been waiting for, to try and get a chance to wave at them and say hello. Unclear whether
actually something else occurs to me here too,
perhaps
is that historically speaking,
the throne speech, when they make their way over to the War Memorial later,
is that historically speaking, the Liberal Party has always been the one that was a little more about our ties to the throne, and the Conservatives were always the party to play that up. We are a Commonwealth country, blah blah blah.
More of a royalist kind of.
Yeah. Whereas, here we are now with a Liberal government. And I mean, I have no idea what Mark Carney's personal feelings about the monarchy are. But I mean, he is obviously, the government's paying for all this pomp and circumstance, as I say, because of the optics of this, the political optics of this.
Well, and the way my impression of Carney at this point is his feelings, he's probably just feeling quite pragmatic about it. Kind of like, it's what we're going to have to do. It's a message we need to send. And, but his feelings aside, oh, that's a cool shot.
Mm-hmm. Oh, a young person.
They're not all seniors. Oh, there they go.
Oh,
and there's some historical significance even with the state landau, the vehicle that they're in.
Yep.
She doesn't look very happy.
Thanks, Adrienne. Now the state landau is just arriving now where we are, and you can see the King and Queen there. The King wearing his Order of Canada medal, as long as a number of other medals. I would imagine that they are all symbols of Canada, or pointing to Canada.
And turn this up a little bit.
Yeah, and the Governor General and her husband Whit Fraser also accompanying, obviously, His Majesty. Of course, the Governor General usually reads the throne speech, and when Mary Simon did it for the first time, she did speak in Inuktitut, her mother tongue, for the first time. She's not so good in French. I would imagine that King Charles will not have as many problems in French as the Governor General did. Certainly his mother delivered part of her speech in French as well. So it'll be interesting to see what parts are said in French, given that some of the tension around the monarchy does exist in Quebec, which is primarily, obviously, French speaking. And there you can see that is, Carolyn, the flag for the King now on the top of Center Block. Just an extraordinary moment to see King Charles here for the first time delivering the throne speech.
Looking
only
very
the third time
dapper.
in Canada's history.
Oh, very.
Mm-hmm.
So the that is the Order of Canada, right? Like
Yeah,
yeah.
the medals. Yeah, I don't know if they all are or how that works, but oh, this is where all the pomp. Oh, Trump must be just.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that Trump's money can't buy.
Wow.
They probably trained for years for something like this. I would be afraid I would do a major gaffe, an etiquette faux pas. Say something when I wasn't supposed to, or
Uh-huh.
get out of line.
Well. So how many like places have you got, like, or functions that have you been to where like the Queen was there, or
Once when I was a child, she came on the train and stopped at all the little towns.
This was when?
Oh gosh, dating me. It was when I was a kid.
Okay.
I can't remember. I would have to check. Between 1974 and in the mid 70s,
Yeah.
probably closer to mid 70s.
I remember 1978. I was in grade 6.
So
yeah, it was the summer of 78. I was in grade 6, and the Queen came to attend the opening ceremonies of the World University Games.
yeah.
And
So
I remember we were doing all kinds of social studies, assignments, like we had to color the different flags of the Commonwealth, or no, it was 78 Commonwealth Games. Sorry. 83 was the World University Games. So I attended both opening ceremonies with my mom. My mom was a big royalist. And so I saw her at both.
So when he was inspecting the guard, I wonder if there's ever been a time whenever he's like, oh, you got something wrong there. So this is what's considered full military honors. So it includes a royal salute, 100-person guard of honor, and it's from the 3rd Battalion of the Royal Canadian Regiment.
Oh, he has decided to speak to someone.
Yeah, that's the second person he's spoken to, and they're probably, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong?
Oh, I highly doubt he's doing that. I mean, come on.
I know. But I also found out that when they arrived at Ottawa Airport, they were met with a guard from the Royal Canadian Dragoons, which was formed in 1803.
Oh God, that guy is tall compared to Charles.
And I don't think Charles is any slow.
And I will bet you that's what he was mentioning there too.
Yeah.
Because the soldier there was smiling.
Yeah.
All right, that was His Majesty's inspection of the guard. There was a 21-gun salute that surprised David Cochran here on the set.
I was not ready.
He's 1.78 meters
so those
tall.
are his royal duties before he enters the Senate, where he's about to get down to business, which is what he's here for, of course. Oh, he's going to do some more chatting with the Canadian Armed Forces here. Of course, he is the commander-in-chief of the Canadian Armed Forces. right, Carolyn?
Yes, and Prince Philip was the colonel-in-chief of the Royal Canadian Regiment, and on his last visit to Canada,
king is
presented new colors to the 3rd Battalion in 2013.
And he's been stopping to chat with a few people and seems to be having a good time. As Adrian was talking about earlier, it genuinely is interested in hearing.
I'm just glad it's beautiful
Yes.
weather for them.
Yeah.
The discipline required there, Rosie. It's a hot day here in Ottawa.
It is a hot day. Yeah.
And like,
It'd be
I don't have any
miserable
ground
here in the
cover on my
rain.
head, but look at that. You can imagine now when you're dressed like this on a hot day and you're going to be facing the king and meeting the king, a tremendous honor, but the discipline required, to wear this sort of garb, to hold the instruments at such precise attention for such a long period of time. It's a special moment, but it takes a little bit of work on a day like this to keep it together.
Last one we did was 2021.
Some real genuine excitement there from the crowd too, from the people that have made time to come out today. And
Yeah, I guess it has been a while since we've had a royal visiting Canada, so this is a big deal.
And different things,
This is a big
Reno
deal.
Hall yesterday, there was a moment where people saying right around the time of the tree planting. So you're always curious, in a more.
When was the last time you
in
had
the
a
year
royal?
2025, how excited people get, for traditions like this. But
people that like the monarchy, they love it. And people that don't, they just don't. So today will be a different
I think it's
experience
possible
for
to
different
be in
people, but it is
between.
part of our history and tradition.
I don't consider myself a royalist, but I can appreciate the traditions and the heritage and the background to it all.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not a royalist the way that my mom was. My mom was hardcore. But yeah, same thing. I do think that there's a lot of importance to our traditions, and our traditions include the monarchy.
Yeah. Well, and it was just fascinating when I was doing the research and stuff on what each piece means and how it symbolizes our unique, well, not unique as in being one, but how it reflects the British parliamentary Westminster Parliament.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I can't speak. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I say, even when they knock on the door, it symbolizes the tension between the monarch and the parliament, and the fact that it's not like they're just sitting back waiting for the king to bless them with his presence. It's like their meeting is equal, and that would you like to come? And they decide to.
Yeah, and the thing is that even when the queen or the king aren't here, they still do that.
Yeah.
They still do, knock on the door and stuff like that.
Because the governor general is there, and they are the king's representatives. I'm having a hard time saying queen's representatives.
God save the queen. The king there is greeted by the usher of the Black Rod, Greg Peters. He is the other critical part of this day, as he is the person that has to make his way to the House of Commons, knock on that door 3 times, and ask the MPs or the commoners to make their way down the street here for the throne speech.
Okay, so now I must admit I've never paid attention to this before. Is the throne speech always delivered in the Senate?
Yes.
Okay.
They've had to make some accommodations for the way they're doing this simply because of the renovations of the West Block. And so that's why the MPs are going to have to walk down the street, because the Senate and House of Commons aren't currently in the same building. But yes, it's in the Senate. It's otherwise known as the Red Chamber.
But it's these little moments and traditions that they may be a little bit apocryphal, but they endure.
Don't mind me. I'm just going to have a little bite of breakfast.
Just so long as there's no red wedding there, we're good.
Happening in the Senate, right? Because the commons.
Yeah, no kidding.
For the commons. and not for the monarchy or even the representative of the sovereign.
Yeah, this is part of the greeting party here, both the chief of the defense staff, the commissioner of the RCMP. Carolyn, I don't know if you wanted to jump in there on.
Oh, okay.
Pieces, those chambers separate.
Oh, yes, that dates from King Charles I trying to arrest 5 members of the House of Commons in 1642 as they were trying to constrain his power. He'd had to submit to the Petition of Right in 1628. And after that attempt to arrest the 5 members who'd already been tipped off and had fled, the English Civil Wars broke out. And although the monarchy would be
we're going to get some
restored in
drumming.
1660,
the king could not enter the House
Cool.
of Commons. So it's a holdover from
Yeah.
times when tensions between the king and Parliament exploded into open war.
And an important thing to remember now as well, that there is a difference between the people who have been duly elected versus the people who are appointed in the Senate, and of course the representatives of the monarchy. Let's just listen in here as the king and queen are greeted.
Enjoy your visit. Hey, you're welcome.
I think it's also important for us to make a comment about the fact that the king is battling cancer right now, and for him to
Those are the Ottawa River Singers.
take his time and energy
the
to
king
come to
and queen
Canada.
there
He has been really cutting back on his royal visits, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And you can really see the he's aged.
Yeah.
To be honest, I've never been a big Charles fan, but I think he's been doing a good job.
Yeah,
I
he
don't know.
has.
I don't know if he's the way to phrase it when it's a royalty doing a good job, but I think he's been doing well.
Trying to get a glimpse of the king before he gets inside the Red Chamber. That building has been incredibly refurbished. The former train station here in Ottawa, now the Senate, as the Senate undergoes.
I did not know that.
It's significant renovation.
It's added an interesting
They've been
dimension
doing renovations
Yeah.
since
because in the
2009.
old center block underneath the Peace Tower, the Senate and the
They're
House
as
of Commons
fast
have
as
all come
building
together.
in Edmonton.
Now they're down
No,
the
but I
street,
didn't
and
realize
so
that the
it
Senate is a
requires,
former train
a
station.
Oh,
public to the event,
it works
right?
perfectly.
Well,
I
often
mean,
they get
they've
on
got
buses
the
now, the
Yeah.
MPs, to
viewing
come down
area.
because
Well,
it's a bit of a jaunt down
Yeah,
the
it's
hill here.
faster and more reliable than the LRT in this town, that's for sure. Even the Landau is probably a safer way of public commute, like Royal Uber,
Yeah.
to get to the speech from the throne. But it creates this dimension as we're going to see the ushers of the
I've never heard it
Black Rod
called the
leave
Royal
and go to the
Uber
House of
before.
Commons and invite them to come down and stand outside the Senate, to listen
Yeah.
to the King speak. But it's interesting to know how the renovation of the center block, just how much has changed this day from
Yep.
the first throne speech I covered here many years ago.
It's a little longer than it normally is because of those logistics, but this is the fourth time that the throne speech has been read inside this building, the temporary home. Though, of course, it'll be the first time that a monarch reads
I
a
wonder what
speech
they'll
inside
do
this
with it.
building. There'll be a special
Like
throne
once the
for him as
renovations
well that we
are
can
done.
talk about more when we
Sorry,
see
what?
it. But those are just some lucky
I wonder
people
what
that
they'll do
happen
with
to
that
work
building
inside the
once the
Senate building
renovations
that are
and the
gathered
other
there for this historic
Mm.
moment. Ashley Burke, also
are
a
done.
lucky person inside the Senate, not the chamber, but in the main hall there at the Senate, standing by and waiting. Ashley?
Rosie, at any moment, we're expecting the king to walk by with his procession and head inside to the chamber. I just took a peek inside not long ago. It is packed with dignitaries. Former Governors General H. Clarkson, Michael Jean, the Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre were told inside. And we're also told to expect former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau for his first big public event that he's attending since leaving office.
They're letting
This is
Pierre
really a chance for the government to have the king say their words when he's reading the speech from the throne, read out their priorities, their vision for the country. As well, the king is expected to do a short introduction himself to start the speech, but he has to be politically neutral. So, we probably won't hear any overt comments in that section about Canada's sovereignty, but the royals are masters at the art of sending more subtle and significant messages in other ways, from what they're wearing to the very act of being here, a sovereign, being in Canada on Canadian soil, reading this message from the throne. That in itself is a powerful act, Rosie.
Yeah, you're quite right. They are masters at doing that, Ashley. We'll come back to you as soon as we think that the king might pass by. You're not supposed to yell at the king and try and get a question.
Yeah,
I have
you're
done
not
it
supposed to
before.
yell at him.
You won't actually get arrested. You're not supposed to.
I think that's probably the
Anyway.
the
Thank you
very
so much for that, Ashley.
lowest
I didn't
of etiquette.
Yeah.
Oh, yell at the king.
But I'm still here to tell the tale. There are a
Oh,
couple
my
of
husband
symbols
just brought me
that
coffee.
the
It's
Queen
so
is
good.
wearing, and we'll just go over some of those. The Canadian Riffles brooch, I guess, Carolyn. I don't know if that means something to you. She's also wearing various other things, but I think that's
I'm
the
disappointed
significant
there's no
that she's
crown.
wearing.
Yes, she has
Mhm.
5 different Canadian brooches, some of which
The
are
thumbnail I
truly
used for this
historic from
has
earlier
both his and her
tours,
crown.
such as the 1939 maple leaf brooch that we saw her wearing yesterday, and some are more recent presents to Queen Elizabeth II.
So they were busy
And so
yesterday.
there were widespread predictions
They
that we would
flew
be
in at
seeing
9
more than one
p.m.
Canadian brooch on this tour.
and then
so Royal Livery fans have been
not at
keeping a close
9:50
eye on those
a.m.
brooches.
They didn't
Okay.
say when they arrived, but they arrived at the
Forward to seeing
Ottawa
Queen and King again
airport.
emerge. We are running a little bit behind.
And from there,
in
they
terms of where we
went
should be at this time.
to Lansdowne
And
Park
they are just
for a
gathered right
community
now
gathering
in
showcasing
antechamber, I guess,
Canadian
preparing
identity and
for what
diversity.
is next, which is
Then they went to
they
a
will make their way
ceremonial
into the
tree
Senate
planting
chamber,
at
at
Rideau
which time the
Hall.
usher of the Black Rod,
The
Craig
Governor
will,
General's,
as David said, have
oh,
a
and they
walk
stayed
through
last night at the
the
Governor
street in their
General's
car
official
and
residence, which is like their home
follow
away
the
from
photograph
home
of
whenever
the
they're in
governor
Canada.
and MPs duly elected to make their
They
way
met
into
with the
Senate.
Governor
Not
General
all of
and
them
the
will come, obviously.
Territorial
There's a lot of them, and
Commissioners,
there's no space
which
for
is
them.
of
But those who
Yukon,
want to
Northwest
try and get a glimpse
Territories,
and
and
stand behind the
Nunavut.
bar,
And
Senate, as they're not technically allowed on the floor of the Senate,
they're kind of like the
will come down
premiers
and be part
of the
that
provinces,
ceremony.
except they're appointed.
I don't think we'd see any Bloc Québécois MPs flocking
What
to
else?
get down here, given how critical they've been of this moment and the monarchy in general.
Can I tell you my
Then they had an
favorite local
audience with the
story
Governor
was from
General, who is the
1997
Right
when
Honorable,
Queen Elizabeth came to
Mary
Newfoundland
Simon
Labrador
at Rideau
Cabin
Hall.
500 when the
And then they had an audience with the Prime Minister.
Newfoundland to Bonavista.
So they had a busy day yesterday.
To recreate,
Yeah.
the journey of Log Cabot. And Queen Elizabeth, in one of the the visiting institutions in the community, went to the Purity Factories building in the center of St. John's, and it's a well.
Is he there to make sure nobody escapes? There was somebody standing in front of the doors.
And the Queen was walking.
No, you can't come out.
With the workers there, and she went up to one of the workers and said, "And what are you making?" And the reply was $12.50 an hour. Thinking the Queen was asking about wages, and it's sort of one that is circulated in legend. It's seen as apocryphal, but the CBC actually dug into it a few years ago and confirmed it. But I remember that was my very first summer working at the CBC. 28 years ago now, and that was the one that and going back to the impropriety of shouting a question at the monarch. Brian Tobin, who was the premier at the time when the Queen was walking up some steps in Bonavista, he reached out to put his hand on her back and steadied her and made contact with the Queen.
I remember that.
And boy, did we get a lesson for how the British press responded to moments like that in St. John's.
Not allowed to touch, Carolyn, it's fair to say, unless they initiate the handshake.
Well, there's been a few instances in the past where we've seen, for instance, Governor General David Johnson helping the Queen at Canada House. So sometimes there have been the more informal moments.
That's what I'm talking about. I'd be afraid of
we will see as well in this moment. You saw there the Ottawa River Singers. There'll be other elements of Canada's Indigenous peoples here, Indigenous peoples of this country throughout this ceremony, which also speaks, of course, to our history, to our heritage, to how this country began. There'll be a moment to highlight Inuit. The Inuit people, and that has happened and started largely because of the Governor General Mary Simon. So you'll see a Quilig, which has been there for a number of throne speeches now.
It had to be. Like the Indigenous people had to be very highly represented for this visit. Like no two ways about it. And I could be wrong about this, but I mean, it's not just the fact that the Indigenous people in this country are, a big part of this country, but it's, to me, anyways, it's also sending a very pointed message to Alberta that you can't just do away with treaty. You just can't.
Yeah. Well, I hope that wasn't their intention. I would hope they would have more altruistic intentions, but yes, it would definitely send a message.
Down the stairs, and it's actually quite small. It's quite tight. There won't be a lot of room in there for people. There'll be some room in the galleries, and then some room on the floor. But it'll be tight quarters when this throne speech gets started, David.
Yeah, I believe there's already some MPs that went down there, is what I'm being told. They're not waiting for the Black Rod to issue the formal invitation. They made their way down.
They did? All right, okay.
Some have.
Okay.
I'm being told by people who are there that they spotted some MPs, and you're seeing some people posting various pictures and different things. But some have made their way down. I don't know if that is a violation of protocol or not. But, maybe they're speaking in the name of efficiency over tradition with their actions here. But I don't know, Rosie, with today. I mean, the Landau obviously took the King down. I don't know if the MPs will take a shuttle bus down, if they will actually walk, because it is a bright, sunny day.
650 meters away.
Prime Minister and his desire to keep everything on schedule, I would hope he would hope, or there are some motorized options available to the various members of Parliament, because you can see there in that shot of the House, it's not very full at this point in time.
No.
So it's kind of like a symbolic party, I guess, of MPs ready to be there for the invitation. From Greg Peters, who is the usher of the Black Rod, to make their way down to the old railway building.
If I was an MP, I would want to wait.
And that is on the left of your screen, as David said, the House of Commons up on the west block, so up sort of past where the Landau has already been and gone now, and that is where, as David said, the usher will make his way shortly in order to get things underway. The throne speech itself expected to be about 20-25 minutes, depending on how quickly, I guess, the King chooses to read it. And Carolyn, this is obviously, so as we've been talking about, crafted by the Prime Minister's office, by the government. It is the government speech, with the exception of a portion at the beginning. How much input would the palace have in terms of what is in it and what isn't in it?
Well, the palace would be aware of the speech, but as you say, it's written by the Canadian government. It's not the king's personal thoughts. He is reading the throne speech that's been crafted for him by the Canadian government. But there will be some greetings towards the beginning where we will see a few personal sentiments there before he reads the official speech. So certainly it's something that will have been carefully reviewed by King Charles's office. And we know that when Queen Elizabeth II delivered a throne speech in Australia back in 1974, there were a few tweaks in the wording simply about how the Crown advises the Prime Minister at the federal and the state levels in Australia.
And I think that's one thing that's really important to remember is that when he is giving the actual speech, he's speaking on behalf of the government, not himself. Well, I just wanted to make that clear because I think if you're popping in and you're not aware, you might think that's his speech.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, I mean, you just think of what it's called, the speech from the throne.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, throne indicates, you know, the monarchy.
Exactly. But no, the Prime Minister's office would have written the speech and then given it to them for approval, I imagine, because I don't imagine the king's going to get up there and say just anything.
Yeah. Well, and they did mention too that that the king's office would have received a copy.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
You know, except for maybe members of the Bloc Québécois. But, you know, speaking for Canada as a sovereign nation, I don't know if Carolyn has any insight on this, but I'm curious, you know, where the palace would be on that. Like going back to the idea that, you know, the king has to act on the advice of the prime minister. And yes, he is here as the king of Canada and he is the head of state and he is the sovereign of this country, but it's the same situation in the United Kingdom and he has multiple prime ministers speaking to him, right? So I just wonder how they balance that. You know, Carolyn, if you have a sense of what the playbook is for that, because it seems like so many of the traditions, norms, and institutions we have, they didn't account for a situation like a president like Donald Trump, but this is
nobody did.
The speech and the time he's delivering the speech.
Yes, it's one of the challenges, the king having so many prime ministers, and perhaps one of the most visible examples of that was when the royal succession was made gender neutral back in 2011 with the Perth Agreement, which came into force in 2015. The prime ministers all had to agree.
Just going to tone down the talking for a minute.
Ashley, you're down there. I don't know if they're just going by you right now.
She always looks so sour.
What, Camilla?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, Rosie. Sorry, we weren't allowed to talk until they passed by. We were given strict orders about that. But you just saw the king and the queen, along with a procession that included the prime minister, the chief of the defense staff, all head inside to a room, the Senate, that's going to be packed full of dignitaries. There are several former prime ministers, we're told, that are inside, several former governor generals, as well as a series of premiers, all here to witness this historic moment. There's a new king, a new government. This is a chance for the prime minister to try and assert Canada's sovereignty and send a message not only to the U.S. but to the world that this is a sovereign country.
E-transfer.
So really watching closely to see if any of those references are in this speech.
What?
Oh, the CC, the closed captioning can be a little.
Yeah. There's also going to be Supreme Court justices in attendance.
Yes.
Speaker of the Senate, Senator.
Yeah, well, there's your current Supreme Court justices there.
I wouldn't recognize him. I don't see the guy knock on the door.
Veuillez be seated. Veuillez vous m'asseoir.
proceed to the House of Commons and acquaint that House that it is the pleasure of His Majesty the King that they attend him immediately in the Senate chamber.
Oh, there's JT.
Huissier du
There's
bâton
Stephen Harper.
noir, rendez-vous à la Chambre
There's
des
Kim Campbell.
communes et informez-la que c'est le plaisir de Sa Majesté le Roi que les communes se rendent immédiatement auprès de lui dans la salle du Sénat.
Is that Margaret Trudeau?
She's dead. Is she not dead?
Well, I just saw someone that looked like her sitting beside Justin Trudeau.
Oh. Uh-huh.
Okay, and that is the moment where things get started here, where the Usher of the Black Rod is requested to go and request that the members of Parliament, the commoners, make their way here to the Red Chamber. And there you see
The rumors
king
of her
and queen
demise
on
were
those
greatly
thrones. We're going to
exaggerated.
hear soon from that young woman, a Métis fiddler. And we'll talk about the throne in just a moment, because
Yeah, and that was probably her. She is
that King
alive.
Charles is sitting on, but I don't want to get in the way.
Yeah, that is
His
Margaret
music. Gordon
Trudeau.
Brace is an
Yeah.
18-year-old fiddle player from my home province of Manitoba. And look there, she's standing in front of a bunch of former prime ministers. We'll talk more about that.
Did you know that the Queen had to be sworn into the Privy Council?
Sorry, what was that?
Did you know that the Queen had to be sworn into the Privy Council of Canada?
I did not know that.
The Canadian Privy Council is formerly known as the King's Privy Council for Canada, and it's a body of advisors to the monarch. And it was a constitutional establishment established under the Constitution Act of 1867. So basically, it means she can give him advice. Which kind of makes sense, you know. Pillow talk and all that. I'm glad we decided to start at 8 and not 8:30.
God, she's so young.
Nerves of steel. Very good. And I missed what the significance of this is.
I missed it too.
We were too busy talking.
Yeah. I mean, all I caught is that she's 18 years old. She's from Manitoba and she's Métis.
Maybe that's what it's there. There's a representative of Métis.
From Métis woman from Manitoba.
Oh.
She's playing the fiddle since the age of 4. Standing in front of former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, Stephen Harper sitting together, Kim Campbell, and others. And the King now is going to make the rounds a little bit. Mila Mulrooney also there in the front row on behalf of her husband, the late Prime Minister. And this is the part I was telling you about here, the quillig that will be lit now by an Inuit elder.
No pressure from Morgan Grace, though.
No, yeah.
Oh,
Play
they're smudging.
in the Senate in front of the king, and most of the just old enough to vote this year, in front of all those prime ministers, the Supreme Court judges you see there right now shaking hands with the king. I mean, that's quite the audience at such a tender age to do so well.
The Métis violinist
Now the king just
is
excuse
me, is deeply symbolic, reflecting Canada's commitment to reconciliation and the recognition of Indigenous cultures within its national identity.
I'm sure he'll make his way over to
Well, that makes sense.
former prime ministers.
Yeah. The performance was part of a broader effort to ensure that the royal visit resonated with
While
all
this is
Canadians,
happening, obviously, the usher of the Black Rod
and the
is on
importance
his
of
way
Indigenous
to
culture.
the West Block, the House of
Past,
Commons, where
present,
it is
future.
situated now, as the center block is undergoing renovations
Gotta
for
love
many years. There you go. There's some former governor generals, Adrienne Clarkson and her husband, John Ralston Saul. They were also at the swearing in of the new cabinet. So it's been a busy couple weeks for these people too. Michael Jean is there as well, former governor general. David Johnston, another former governor general there. His wife, Sharon.
The guy walking down the hall.
You also saw there too, Rosie, on the other side.
She's looking pretty darn good.
The prime ministers, Margaret Trudeau was there, Mila Mulroney, as you mentioned, Kim Campbell.
Yep.
You also saw the former Speaker of the Senate, George Fury, and his wife Karen were there, and you saw Jeff Regan, former Speaker of the House of Commons, and
Margaret
his wife
Trudeau.
Kelly Regan.
Okay, I did not see Mila Mulroney.
Nova Scotia. I know she was in the cabinet in Nova Scotia. I worked with her on the Nova Scotia election special last fall. So you see people, who have held parliamentary office. George Fury, he aged out of the Senate, turning 75 and retired. And his son recently the former Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador, Andrew Fury, just retired not that long ago to go back to medicine. And look, and because I know them, you can see Senator David Wells and Senator Fabian Manning from Newfoundland and Labrador there as well in the receiving line to speak to the king as he shakes hands with dignitaries on this side of the Senate.
Now everyone's realizing they should probably stand up.
Yeah.
If the king stands in Canada, that's probably a good idea.
With someone wearing that many medals comes by,
There's probably somebody
Generally
at the
stand
back
up. Now they're trying to corral him to make sure that he doesn't shake the hands of every single person on the chamber
They've
floor
got
as
the
much as
time
they
as
might
they're
all like
waiting
that.
for the MPs.
You can see the Queen. She is on the other side doing some of that handshaking as well.
It throws me whenever they talk about the Queen because, I mean, obviously it's Camilla, but of course when I hear the name Queen,
give that
she's not the first person
door.
I think of.
But we should tell you that
No, and
in the balcony there of the main foyer of the Senate, there were actually lots of MPs eventually.
I don't know why, but
when we saw them up close. So a lot of those MPs are already here to your point, David, and will just make their way down.
Yeah, I saw Rob Oliphant, Randeep Sarai, I believe.
Conservative Melissa Lanceman. There were a number of people there. So those people will just, maybe we won't have to wait for them to get here, I guess, in terms of trying to save time between when the usher is there and when things actually get started.
Well, I think for the sake of ceremony, we still have to wait for the official party that's there to get down, right? I think that is...
Yeah, and the usher has to come back, but cuts down a little bit of the time.
That seems a little jarring to me. I mean, here we are, all the pomp and circumstance of the king, and then you see the parliamentary police there with his gun and a bulletproof vest on,
Be interesting to see if he makes.
I mean, I know it's necessary, but it's just a little jarring right now.
That is where the
Unfortunately, the monarch, Canada has always had kind of a conflicted
There's
feeling.
like an event like this that I love because you get to see former prime ministers in these, strange situations where Stephen Harper and Justin Trudeau are suddenly sitting together.
Stephen Harper and Justin Trudeau are sitting together. Pierre Poilievre, we're told, is also there. It's remarkable to think here we are on the 27th of May, and Pierre Poilievre and Justin Trudeau are not members of Parliament. Justin Trudeau is not the prime minister. He is in retirement. He is sitting next to, the person he beat in 2015 for that job as prime minister. And it shows the transition as it looks like the usher has arrived at the House of Commons.
Here's Greg Peters, the usher of the Black Rod, arriving now. We're going to go to that moment inside the House of Commons,
to see it.
or outside the doors of the House of Commons.
And he's not allowed to go in. He has to wait.
A message from His Majesty, the King of Canada. Le message de Sa Majesté, le Roi du Canada.
Yeah, what do you want? I just got out of the shower. Excuse me. What amazes me as someone who has planned events is how amazing it is they were able to pull this together
As quickly as they did, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mind you, I guess they didn't have to look for a venue.
Okay, on the right of your screen there, you can see the King speaking with Neil Mulrooney, and beside her is Margaret Trudeau, who's accompanying her son, the former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who knows, of course, the King well. Oh, there you see, big embrace from Margaret Trudeau. And on the left of your screen, the traditional part of the ceremony, where the usher of the Black Rod is being allowed into the House of Commons, on the floor of the House of Commons, as the messenger of the sovereign here, to deliver the message that he has been asked to deliver, that the MPs come to the Red Chamber for the throne speech, as the King on the right of your screen speaks with former Conservative Prime Minister Stephen Harper.
Does Stephen Harper's hair
Mr.
ever
Speaker,
move?
It is the pleasure of His Majesty, the King of Canada, that this honorable House attend him immediately in the chamber of the Senate. Monsieur le Président, c'est le plaisir de Sa Majesté, le Roi du Canada, que cette honorable chambre se rende immédiatement auprès de lui dans la chambre du Sénat.
There's not a lot of MPs in attendance. A lot of empty seats there.
Yeah.
Okay, and that is the message delivered now by the usher of
You
the
see
Black
the
Rod.
mace there on the right side?
Will make his way now back to the Red Chamber, where you can see the King
The gold
is
mace.
busy meeting and greeting various former politicians, the Premier of New Brunswick.
You see the? Did you see the mace?
Yes, I did.
And did you know that it was actually was a weapon?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, a mace has always been a weapon, except in ceremonial circumstances like this. But yes, the mace was always a weapon back in like medieval days and stuff.
I learned so much in researching this.
Yeah.
I had no idea. Yeah, it's a weapon of war to protect the king. Oh, I guess I should turn that up.
Governors Anita Neville, I happen to know, Lieutenant General of Manitoba, and others. Know if you recognize any of those people there, Carolyn?
Well, it's interesting that we're seeing such an extensive walkabout in the chamber by King Charles III and Queen Camilla, and a few people seem to be admiring Queen Camilla's brooch from the Queen's Own Rifles, where she is Colonel-in-Chief. And now we see King Charles greeting Supreme Court justices, and of course there's former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Margaret Trudeau and Stephen Harper.
Yeah, we saw Mike Savage as well, the recently appointed
Margaret
Lieutenant Governor
has
of
been
Nova Scotia,
through a lot.
Halifax, working with the Canadian Federation of Canadian Municipalities.
What the monarch.
This is the first
The
public sighting
interaction
of Justin
they had
Trudeau
with her.
Yeah.
well,
Well,
he
you
was
know
out
what
during
I
election
found
campaign
interesting
one.
when
This
he
is
was
really
going
his
through,
first
like,
public-
talking to Mila Mulrooney and then talking to Margaret Trudeau and Justin Trudeau and Stephen Harper and Kim Campbell, is the fact that Margaret Trudeau hugged the king. Like, that is just not kosher. But
I
yet
know.
she did it because she's known him for so long. Because I remember, and it was a what's the word I'm trying to think of? I mean, it was a scandal back in the day. You know, the fact that the Prince Charles and Margaret Trudeau were such good friends. After Pierre Trudeau and Margaret Trudeau got divorced. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it was scandalous, according to my mother.
Well, in the whole, I don't think there's a whole generation that doesn't know about all the scandals of Margaret Trudeau and her and the Rolling Stones being and all of that kind of stuff. But I've often thought when any of the royalty is involved, when Justin Trudeau was in the Prime Minister's office, I often thought how strange that would be for the monarch to see Pierre's son come up and be the Prime Minister as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Raised the way he's raised, I don't know if you ever truly have a normal private life, because his experience in some ways is not dissimilar to a royal, right? And that you are born into the public eye and grow up in the public eye and continue in the public eye in a way that Stephen or Harper or Kim Campbell can drift away.
Michael Jean
right?
is dragging the king across the chamber floor by his hand to introduce him to someone. It's the head of the AFN.
There's Michael Jean.
Perhaps being worth dragged over for, but we'll see how that goes over, given what you've all said about.
If you were the sovereign's representative, do you get a one touch per visit? Is that how it works? You can drag them
He
off?
stays in their
You
house.
can see there's a warm family atmosphere here, as is often the case at Commonwealth heads of government meetings as well, that a certain informality prevails when the monarch is in the Commonwealth realms.
Yeah. And the Prime Minister also there mingling on the floor with the Supreme Court justices, not something that you see every day either, given how our powers are divided in this country. We are at this stage waiting for the usher of the Black Rod to come back. Ashley Burke is inside the Senate, where MPs are also waiting, Ashley, to try and get a good spot there at the bar, at the door of the Red Chamber, to see what they can see and hear.
Exactly, Rosie. There are dozens of MPs that are lined up.
And this speech won't be his last duty before they leave. They're going to go after this and lay a wreath at the National War Memorial to mark the 25th anniversary of the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier.
The finance minister, Francois Philippe Champagne, he described this as a great day.
And then they'll take off. It's a flying trip.
Right now, and that this sends a strong message to the world today. Unfortunately, we can't talk to any of the MPs right now until that procession happens. They're told to stay behind the red carpet, but certainly the atmosphere here today is really positive. They're really looking forward to hearing the speech from the throne, and we're expecting some of them to speak to us afterwards about what this symbolizes and what this says, including to the U.S.
Can you bump up the volume just a bit, please?
Well, we're told there were about
Certainly
50 MPs who will be there and trying to get a good spot at the door of the chamber, because again, they can't actually enter it ever actually. That's sort of how we divide things up. These are the new thrones I was talking about. Carolyn, I don't know if you know about them. I do if you don't, but they were built for this new temporary building.
Yes, and Queen Elizabeth II herself chose the trees from the Windsor Great Park that would be used to make these particular thrones. And they are made for this building as these much older thrones that were designed for Queen Victoria's son-in-law, Lord Lorne, when he became Governor General in 1878 and traveled to Canada with Queen Victoria's daughter, Princess Louise. Those much older thrones were in need of refurbishment, along with the Senate chamber more widely. So these are the new thrones that are in place for the ceremony.
They include the cipher of Queen Elizabeth II, who, as you said, chose them, reigned while the throne was carved, and they will stay there to represent the era that the thrones were created. And of course, only the king, the governor general, and the queen may sit on these thrones when the Senate is in session. Extraordinary moment here. Wouldn't you like to hear what this conversation is between the prime minister, who has decided to go up to the king and queen and speak to them personally? He had a short audience with the king yesterday. Of course, we don't know the details of what was said, but now here they are again, talking a little bit more about who knows what. The prime minister knows King Charles, has met him in various roles and capacities in the past, whether the governor of the Bank of England or other. Interestingly, his brother, Sean Carney, is the chief operating officer for Kensington Palace, essentially runs that palace. So he's got all sorts of interesting connections to the royal family.
It's interesting, Rosie, to go back to what the finance minister, Francois-Philippe Champagne, said to Ashley, because we'll soon, presumably, start to hear the actual contents of the speech.
I like to think that he was telling him where the bathrooms were.
Canada. I'm curious to see how overt the message is going to be. Whether it is just this event, having the king here, having him, read the speech that outlines the government's priorities and its agenda, is enough in terms of an expression of sovereignty in defiance of what we've heard from Donald Trump going back to last fall, or whether it's going to be more overt. Because quite often what you've had to do with the royals for the past couple of months is sort of decode these messages. It's this particular medal was worn, this particular item was chosen to display, and it's sort of diplomacy at a frequency that kind of only dogs can hear, and I think with a president like Donald Trump and with a political culture like the United States in 2025, subtlety doesn't do it. It needs to be sort of a more blunt thing. And I know there's a tremendous frustration when Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, was in the Oval Office and kind of didn't give the sort of full-throated defense of Canada I think people were counting on. Got cut off by Donald Trump before he could go further. But also, you could understand from a real politics sense why the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom would not want to put that bullseye on himself in terms of dealing with the United States. So I'm curious to see how far the king goes, how far he's able to go, willing to go, or perhaps allowed to go in a moment like this.
So that second state visit that Keir Starmer delivered upon request of the king was something that the Prime Minister said in an interview a week ago, 10 days ago to Sky News, that Canadians weren't all that impressed with.
Irritated was the phrase, I believe.
That he was getting a second state visit, which was perceived by some people as a way to, I don't even know what the word is, to appease or flatter the president in this tense moment, and the Prime Minister was quite frank in his assessment of that decision. Of course, if you were trying to one-up the president, this would do it. You bring the king and queen to your country to deliver the speech of your political agenda. Not that that's what this is about. It is not. But from what we understand of the president's appreciation for the royal family,
it has nothing to do with
whether it will be watched is a different thing, but it will be noted. And
there's the MPs.
And listen, the Prime Minister has now stood there for 5 minutes or so, chatting directly with the king, which is an extraordinary moment, and also not something you see very often. Usually, this is quite a the Governor General sits down and we get about their business. That is not what's happening here. There seems to be some real friendliness between them. On the left of your screen,
well, and part of that I think is they're killing time for the MPs
into the Senate. Of course, led by the usher of the Black Rod. So that means we are not too far from things getting underway.
I do sense, though, Rosie, I think whether Donald Trump watches all of this, I don't know. But
he's streaming us from the White House.
Yeah, there's a throne speech watch party at Mar-a-Lago. But he will see some of this. Like when I was in the Oval Office, for that visit, he did talk about watching the debate, which is remarkable that the President of the United States would watch.
He didn't necessarily watch the debate. Don't believe everything he says.
The leadership process, but he did watch it. I don't know because he was intrigued by it or he wanted to get a sense of Mark Carney in advance of this. But he does like the royal family, and you do have the Prime Minister tactically, strategically.
I've said it before, and I'll say it again. He only is taken with the royal family because he knows they have something his money can't buy. and that is royalty, and that
Mhm.
fascinates him. And I
Yeah.
think it makes him a bit jealous because he wants to be the king.
Yep.
Want to do that, considering Trump is transformational, to borrow a phrase from the prime minister. He had that interregnum, right, where he was president, he lost, and he's back. And in that time period, I mean, the United Kingdom fully exited the European Union. It has completely changed its economic partnerships with one of the most successful trading markets, of the last century. And they are desperately seeking new economic partners to expand and broaden their stability, and wanting to be, removed from the target list of the Donald Trump trade war. So you take whatever advantage you can in a moment like that, because it's real incomes and real jobs and real economic growth that is under threat in these moments. And that's certainly the challenge that was number one on the mandate letter that Mark Carney issued to his cabinet. And I suspect, Rosie, will be right at the very top of the items in this speech the king is about to deliver.
Okay, and here is what we've been waiting for, the Usher of the Black Rod leading this procession of MPs and the mace from the House of Commons, should point out, down into or outside of the Red Chamber, where things will get underway, and the throne speech will start in just a few moments' time, and we will see just indeed how far the support the king lends to Canada goes, how it is articulated, and whether the government has anything new to say about its own agenda, its own legislative agenda in these coming months.
So where do the MPs go? They must be in the gallery.
Yeah, or something. Oh, there you go. So they're not, as I understand
May
it.
it please your majesty. The House of Commons has elected me their speaker, though I am but little able to fulfill the important duties thus assigned to me. If in the performance of those duties, I should at any time fall into error, I pray that the fault may be imputed to me and not to the House of Commons, whose servant I am, and who, through me,
humbleness,
the better to enable them to discharge their duty to their king and country, humbly claim all their undoubted rights and privileges, especially that they may have freedom of speech in their debates, access to your majesty's person at all seasonable times, and that their proceedings may receive from your majesty the most favorable construction. Qu'il plaise à votre majesté.
May it please your majesty.
Yes, so as I understand it, the MPs can't actually enter the Senate.
Separation of powers.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I shouldn't automatically turn that off.
I pray that the fault may be imputed to me and not to the Commons, whose servant I am, and who, through me, the better to enable them to discharge their duty to their king and country.
I must admit, I'm actually a little disappointed that Elizabeth May is not the speaker, because she would have been an amazing speaker.
Speech in their debates, access to your majesty's person at all seasonable times, and that their proceedings may receive from your majesty.
Because she doesn't take no shit from nobody.
Mr. Speaker, I am commanded by His Majesty the King to declare to you that he freely confides in the duty and attachment of the House of Commons to His Majesty's person and government, and not doubting that their proceedings will be conducted with wisdom, temper, and prudence. He grants and upon all occasions will recognize and allow their constitutional privileges. I am commanded also to assure you that the Commons shall have ready access to His Majesty upon all seasonable occasions, and that their proceedings, as well as your words and actions, will constantly receive from him the most favorable construction. Monsieur le Président, Sa Majesté le Roi me charge de
I am
vous dire
commanded
qu'ayant
by
pleine
His
confiance dans
Majesty
le
King Charles III to
loyalisme
declare to you
et l'attachement
that
de la
he
Chambre
freely
I was feeling bad that I was muting out the French, but she's talking over it anyway.
Yeah.
and not doubting that their proceedings will be conducted with wisdom, temper, and prudence.
Volume.
He grants, and upon
The
all
next time they have a
occasions will
speech from the
recognize
throne,
and
the
value
MPs
their
are going to find it rather
constitutional
anticlimactic.
privileges. I am commanded also to assure you that the Commons shall have ready access
Okay,
to
I'm
His
going to turn it
Majesty
up a little bit
upon
so we can hear
all
it from
seasonable
touch
occasions,
every word.
and that their proceedings, as well as your words and actions, will constantly receive from him the most favorable construction.
He had all this time and now he's fiddling with his papers.
Honourable Senators, members of the House of Commons.
You're going to have to jack up the volume. I can't hear
It is
him.
with a deep sense of pride and pleasure that my wife and I join you here today as we witness Canadians coming together in a renewed sense of national pride, unity, and hope. I would like to acknowledge that we are gathered on the unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. This land acknowledgement is a recognition of shared history as a nation, while continuing to deepen my own understanding. It is my great hope that in each of your communities and collectively as a country, a path is found toward truth and reconciliation in both word and deed. This is my 20th visit to Canada, spread over the course of more than half a century, and my first as sovereign. As I've said before, every time I come to Canada, a little more of Canada seeps into my bloodstream, and from there, straight to my heart. I've always had the greatest admiration for Canada's unique identity, which is recognized across the world for bravery and sacrifice in defense of national values, and for the diversity and kindness of Canadians. To the First Nations, Inuit and Métis peoples, you have welcomed my family and myself to your traditional lands with great warmth and hospitality, for which I am humbly grateful. This year, we mark the 80th anniversary of VE Day and VJ Day. On Juno Beach, at Dieppe, on the Somme, at Beaumont-Hamel, at Ypres, and on Vimy Ridge. At those places and many others, forever etched into our memories, Canadians fought and died alongside our closest allies. Aujourd'hui, je vois des élus venant
Today,
d'un bout à l'autre
I
du
see
Canada,
elected members of parliament from
de
all
Saint
across
John's
this country,
à Terre-Neuve
from
et
St. John's,
Labrador,
Newfoundland and
de
Labrador,
Victoria,
Victoria in
Colombie-Britannique
British Columbia,
et d'Arviat
and Arviat
au Nunavut.
in Nunavut.
Je vois des gardiens
I
des droits
see the
et libertés
custodians
garantis
of the rights and
par la
freedoms
Charte canadienne.
guaranteed by the Canadian Charter.
En tant que roi, je
As
tiens
king,
à vous remercier
I wish to
de
thank
vous
you
mettre au service
for
de vos
serving your
compatriotes
fellow
d'un
Canadians
bout ou l'autre
from
de ce
all
grand et
across
beau
this
pays.
vast and beautiful country.
You speak for your communities, representing an incredible richness of cultures languages, and perspectives. We owe it to this generation and those who succeed us to think and act for the greater good of all. While the world faces unprecedented challenges, generating uncertainties across the continents with regards to peace and stability, economics and climate change, your communities have the skills and determination to bring a wealth of solutions. En encourageant la collaboration,
by encouraging collaboration and holding respectful and constructive debates, you will enable this government to take bold and fair-minded actions for the well-being of all Canadians.
It has been nearly 70 years since the Sovereign first opened Parliament. In the time since, Canada has dramatically changed, repatriating its constitution, achieving full independence, and witnessing immense growth. Canada has embraced its British, French, and Indigenous roots and become a bold, ambitious, innovative country that is bilingual, truly multicultural, and committed to reconciliation. The Crown has for so long been a symbol of unity for Canada. It also represents stability and continuity from the past to the present. As it should, it stands proudly as a symbol of Canada today in all her richness and dynamism. When my dear late mother, Queen Elizabeth II, opened a new Canadian Parliament in 1957, the Second World War remained a fresh, painful memory. The Cold War was intensifying. Freedom and democracy were under threat. Canada was emerging as a growing economic power and a force for peace in the world. In the decades since, history has been punctuated by epoch-making events: the Vietnam War, the fall of the Berlin Wall, and the start of the War on Terror. Today, Canada faces another critical moment. Democracy, pluralism, the rule of law, self-determination, and freedom are values which Canadians hold dear, and ones which the government is determined to protect. The system of open global trade that, while not perfect, has helped to deliver prosperity for Canadians for decades, is changing. Canada's relationships with partners are also changing.
Holy crow.
Il nous faut confronter la réalité.
We must confront the reality that's...
Holy crow. I didn't intend on breaking in, but holy crow.
Yeah.
That is humongous after everything we've said about he can't get political and all of that.
He just got political.
He just got political. He just, yeah.
Around them. Fundamental change is always unsettling. Yet this moment is also an incredible opportunity, an opportunity for renewal, an opportunity to think big and to act bigger, an opportunity for Canada to embark on the largest transformation of its economy since the Second World War. A confident Canada, which has welcomed new Canadians, including from some of the most tragic global conflict zones, can seize this opportunity by recognizing that all Canadians can give themselves far more than any foreign power on any continent can ever take away. And that by staying true to Canadian values, Canada can build new alliances and a new economy that serves all Canadians. The Prime Minister and the President of the United States, for example, have begun defining a new economic and security relationship between Canada and the United States, rooted in mutual respect and founded on common interests to deliver transformational benefits for both sovereign nations. Simultanément, le gouvernement œuvre à renforcer
At the same
ses
time,
relations
the government
avec
is
ses
working to
partenaires
strengthen its
commerciaux.
relations.
I'm flabber. My flabber is gasted.
Yeah. I mean, as we know, Mark Carney is the one that the government of Canada wrote the speech, but the fact that the king is willingly saying this.
No, this is still the king's greetings. This is from
the
the
king.
It?
Oh,
yeah.
Of nations
Partage ses valeurs.
that share these
croient
values,
en la
nations
coopération
that believe in
internationale
international
et le
cooperation
libre-échange de
and
biens,
the free exchange
services
of goods,
et d'idées.
services, and ideas.
Dans ce monde nouveau,
In
qui
this new
évolue
world,
à un rythme frénétique,
which is evolving
le
at a
Canada
frantic
tracera
pace,
la voie à suivre.
Canada will chart the path forward.
La démonstration en sera faite dès juin.
That will be demonstrated as early as June, when Canada chairs the G7 summit.
The government is guided by its conviction that the economy is only truly strong when it serves everyone. Many Canadians are struggling to get ahead. The government is responding, reducing middle-class taxes and saving two-income families up to $840 a year.
This could be
It will cut the GST on homes at or under $1 million for first-time home buyers, delivering savings of up to $50,000. And it will lower the GST on homes between $1 million and $1.5 million. Le gouvernement assurera la pérennité de programmes.
The government will ensure the sustainability of programs that allow families to save thousands of dollars each year. In particular, the child care and pharmacare programs. Additional progress will include the expansion of the Canadian dental care program, which will soon be available to approximately 8 million Canadians, thus allowing them to save an average of more than $800 a year.
The government's overarching goal, its core mission, is to build the strongest economy in the G7. That starts with creating one Canadian economy out of 13. Internal barriers to trade and labor mobility cost Canada as much as $200 billion each year. The government will introduce legislation to remove all remaining federal barriers to internal trade and labor mobility by Canada Day. Les premiers ministres de plusieurs provinces et
The
territoires
premiers of several
ont déjà
provinces and
pris
territories
des mesures pour éliminer
have
les
already
obstacles
taken steps
au commerce
to
intérieur.
eliminate barriers to
Le
internal
gouvernement
trade.
va s'appuyer sur ces progrès
The
pour créer,
government
d'ici la
will
fête du Canada,
support that progress
un réel système
by
de
establishing
libre-échange
true
à
free
travers
trade
le pays.
across Canada
Il s'agit d'efforts essentiels
by Canada
pour
Day.
permettre au Canada
These are
de
critical
réaliser
actions
tout son
that will
potentiel
enable Canada
économique,
to realize its
mais
full
cela reste
economic
insuffisant.
potential. But it is not enough.
To build Canada strong, the government is working closely with provinces, territories, and Indigenous peoples to identify and catalyze projects of national significance. Projects that will connect Canada, that will deepen Canada's ties with the world, and that will create high-paying jobs for generations. Given the pace of change and the scale of opportunities, speed is of the essence. Through the creation of a new major federal project office, the time needed to approve a project will be reduced from 5 years to 2, all while upholding Canada's world-leading environmental standards and its constitutional obligations to Indigenous peoples. The government will also strike cooperation agreements with every interested province and territory within 6 months to realize its goal of one project, one review. When Canadians come together, Canada builds things that last. Éliminer ces obstacles qui freinent l'économie canadienne.
Eliminating barriers that hold back the Canadian economy will make it possible to usher in a new era of growth, thanks to which Canada will not only overcome the challenge of trade wars, but emerge stronger than ever. That will allow it to become a superpower when it comes to green and conventional energy,
to
build an industrial strategy that will make Canada more competitive on the international stage, while at the same time fighting climate change, to build hundreds of thousands of good careers in the trades, and thus make Canada a science and innovation hub.
I like that.
Critically, the government will undertake a series of measures to help double the rate of home building while creating an entirely new housing industry, using Canadian technology, Canadian skilled workers, and Canadian lumber. The government will introduce measures to deliver affordable homes by creating Build Canada Homes. This mission-driven organization will act to accelerate the development of new affordable housing. It will invest in the growth of the prefabricated and modular housing industry, and it will provide significant financing to affordable home builders. The government will make the housing market work better, including by cutting municipal development charges in half for all multi-unit housing. The government will drive supply up to bring housing costs down. To be truly strong, Canada must be secure. To that end, the government will introduce legislation to enhance security at Canada's borders. Law enforcement and intelligence agencies will have new tools to stop the flow of fentanyl and its precursors. The Canada Border Services Agency will be given new powers to examine goods destined for export, to prevent the transport of illegal and stolen products, including cars. Le gouvernement protégera la souveraineté du Canada.
The government will protect the sovereignty of Canada by rebuilding, rearming, and reinvesting in the Canadian Armed Forces. It will spur the expansion of the Canadian defense industry by taking part in the Rearm Europe plan, and will thus contribute alongside European partners to transatlantic security. And it will invest to strengthen and boost Canada's presence in the North, because this region, which is an integral part of the Canadian nation, is now facing new threats.
The government will discharge its duty to protect Canadians and their sovereign rights from wherever challenges may come at home or abroad. To keep communities safe, the government will hire 1,000 more RCM Peace personnel. It will change firearms licensing and strengthen enforcement of yellow and red flag laws. Weapons licenses for those convicted of intimate partner violence and those subject to protection orders will be revoked. Through the deployment of scanners, drones, and helicopters, additional personnel, and canine teams, the government will stem the tide of illegal guns and drugs across the border. It will take these steps while protecting the rights of law-abiding gun owners and indigenous peoples' long-standing hunting traditions. The government will bring a renewed focus on car theft and home invasions by toughening the criminal code to make bail harder to get for repeat offenders charged with committing these crimes, along with human trafficking and drug smuggling. During this time of great change, Canadians are uniting behind what makes Canada unique. La langue française et la culture québécoise
The French language and Quebec culture are at the very center of Canadian identity. They define the country that all Canadians and myself hold so dear. Canada is a country that respects and celebrates its official languages and indigenous languages.
The
government is resolute in its determination to protect those institutions that highlight and promote that identity around the world, such as CBC Radio-Canada, to protect those who give us access to fresh, healthy, and high-quality food, our farm producers, and to protect supply management.
Nature is core to Canada's identity. In 2022, Canada convened COP15 in Montreal, which concluded with 196 countries striking a historic agreement to protect 30% of their lands and 30% of waters by 2030. To this end, the government will protect more of Canada's nature than ever before through the creation of new national parks, national urban parks, marine protected areas, and other conservation initiatives. The government will always protect the rights and freedoms that the Charter guarantees for every Canadian. The government will be a reliable partner to Indigenous peoples, upholding its fundamental commitment to advancing reconciliation. Central to this commitment is the creation of long-term wealth and prosperity with Indigenous peoples. For that reason, the government will double the Indigenous Loan Guarantee Program from $5 billion to $10 billion, enabling more Indigenous communities to become owners of major projects. As Canada moves forward with nation-building projects, the government will always be firmly guided by the principle of free, prior, and informed consent. Canada's immigration system has long been a source of pride for Canadians and of dynamism for the economy. The government is dedicated to rebuilding the trust of Canadians in immigration by restoring balance to the system. Le gouvernement instaurera une limite sur le nombre de travailleurs étrangers temporaires
on the number of temporary foreign workers and international students, establishing a cap which, starting in 2027, will be
de la
below
population
5%
canadienne.
of Canada's population.
Simultanément,
At the same time,
il attirera les
it
meilleurs
will
talents
attract the
dans le
best
monde
talent
pour
in the
bâtir
world
l'économie.
to build the economy.
Et il fera
And
savoir aux
it will
Canadiens
make it
et
known
aux
to
Canadiennes
Canadians working
qui
abroad
travaillent à l'étranger que s'ils
that
songent
if
à
they are
revenir
thinking
au
of
pays,
coming back home,
il n'y a pas de moment plus
there is
propice
no
pour le
better
faire.
time than now.
Dans toutes ses actions, le gouvernement
In all its
sera guidé
actions,
par une
the
nouvelle
government
discipline
will be
fiscale.
guided by a new fiscal
Dépenser
discipline,
moins pour que les
spending less
Canadiens puissent
so that
investir
Canadians
plus.
can invest more.
Day-to-day government spending, the government's operating budget, has been growing by 9% every year. The government will introduce measures to bring it below 2%. Transfers to provinces, territories, or individuals will be maintained. The government will balance its operating budget over the next 3 years by cutting waste, capping the public service, ending duplication, and deploying technology to improve public sector productivity. In parallel, the government will take a series of measures to catalyze new investment, to create better jobs and higher incomes for Canadians. The scale of the government's initiative will match the challenges of our times and the ambitions of Canadians. Honourable Senators, members of the House of Commons, when my dear late mother addressed your predecessors 7 decades ago, she said that in that age and against the backdrop of international affairs, no nation could live unto itself. It is a source of great pride that in the following decades, Canada has continued to set an example to the world in her conduct and values as a force for good. À vous et à l'ensemble du peuple
To
canadien,
you and to all
mon
the people
épouse
of
et
Canada,
moi-même adressons
my wife
nos
and I
sincères
wish to
remerciements
extend our sincere
pour cet
thanks
accueil des plus
for
chaleureux.
this, the warmest of welcomes.
As the anthem reminds us, the true North is indeed strong and free. Members of the House of Commons, you will be asked to appropriate the funds to carry out the services and expenditures authorized by Parliament. May you honor the profound trust bestowed upon you by Canadians. And may God bless and guide you in all your duties.
There's just something about the import of the monarch reading that just made that throne speech so much more, you know?
All right, there you have it. A moment in Canada's history that, as the Prime Minister hoped, would match this moment. Just the third time a monarch has read a throne speech, the first time in this particular Red Chamber. A rousing standing ovation for the words written mostly by the government, but some by the king himself, or at least the king's office. And a prime minister who was clearly delighted to hear his government's agenda read by the king.
You're muted.
The throne speech has now been delivered back to the Speaker of the House of
I would
Commons
really like to know
with the instructions from the king
speech ended and the government's began.
That they carry out their duties now to the Canadian people. That rousing applause you heard at the end there around a particular line where the king read, as the anthem reminds us, the true north is indeed strong and free. And while those words would have been written by the Prime Minister's office, they were read by the king, and they would have been approved by the palace, and he would have felt comfortable saying them. It is not the only reference to Canada's sovereignty in this speech. And we'll go through that, as well as some of the policy objectives that the government set out there as things get wrapped up in the Red Chamber. From here, the King and Queen are going to take a moment before they make their way out to the National War Memorial to lay a wreath. So we'll have some time to talk about what just happened here and what it means. David, maybe I'll get you to weigh in. There was lots of references to Canada's sovereignty, but in some of the words that the King himself chose to say before the government's part of the speech began, he talked about a renewed sense of national pride and unity. He talked about how Canada remains an important part of him and admiration for Canada's unique identity.
Right, which is recognized across the world for bravery and sacrifice in defense of national values and for the diversity and kindness of Canadians. And then a paragraph reminding people of the shared sacrifice, marking the 80th anniversary of VE Day and VJ Day. The sacrifices at Juno Beach, at Dieppe, on the Somme, at Beaumont Hamel, which was where the Newfoundland Regiment fought under the Dominion of Newfoundland prior to Confederation with Canada, at Ypres, at Vimy Ridge. Canadians fought and died alongside our closest allies, which would include the United States, right? The First World War and the Second World War. One of the reminders, as President Trump talks quite frequently about the level of military spending, reminding him of the shed blood in shared causes.
The King and Queen now exiting the Red Chamber. As I said, they're going to go into a small antechamber for a moment before they get back to the public part of what their day entails, which will be up here at the National War Memorial. There were overt references to President Trump and to the United States. There was this is the part that the government wrote, that the Prime Minister's office wanted Canadians to hear today, that with the system of global trade is changing, that relationships with partners are changing. And then a section very directly, David, about building that new relationship between Canada and the United States and the world.
Yeah, it very much, that when the part that is clearly written by the government to talk about what the government intends to do and what it wants to do, it lays out.
Well, as I said, yes, government agenda, a lot of that we knew going in. But there is just something about the import of those words coming out of the mouth of our monarch that just gives it more import for some weird reason.
You know what it feels like to me? It feels like Carney is the dad of Canada, and Charles is sort of the grandpa, and now grandpa has come in and said to dad, okay, I'm going to hold you to this, because when the monarch says it, it is, make it so. Like there's
Yeah.
sort of that feeling. And there's absolutely no way that the monarchy, the royals, the king has that much say over the government that he can say, make it so. But there's just that sense or that feeling of now it means something because of all the import and pomp and circumstance and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
So what did you think about the beginning where he talked about a renewed sense of unity and hope? I like the bravery and sacrifice in defense of national values.
Yeah. Well, one thing, okay, the one part of the throne speech, I mean, aside from all the talk about sovereignty, the one that caught my attention was when he was talking about increased defense spending and talking about our relationship with the EU and transatlantic security. He does not mention the US at all.
No, but he also talks about the increased border security. And I have a question mark because I was taking notes. The border security is going to have new powers, is what was said.
Yeah.
Well, which brings me to the question of, what new powers are they going to have? And is that a signal to Trump, who, as we know, has increased his the border into the U.S. has definitely.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the American border guards have become quite antagonistic. But I mean, the way that I read it is, yeah, let's stop those bloody guns from crossing the border. I mean, he specifically mentioned guns and fentanyl. And the fact remains is that the number of illegal guns coming into this country is insane.
Yes, but it has never, ever, that I really have paid attention to or noticed, it's never really been high on the political priority list.
No, it's never been high on political priorities, but that's the reason why there are so many bloody illegal guns in this country, because it was never a priority.
Exactly. And I totally get that. But I suspect it is also an excuse to tighten up our borders, much like Trump used fentanyl for the tariffs.
Oh, as a national emergency, yes.
Yes, I think this is a way that we can strengthen our borders without looking like we're being aggressive.
Well, but the fact is, as I say, I mean, yes, you're right. It has never been a national political priority about guns. But, I mean, okay, most sane Canadians are aware of the number of illegal guns crossing the border. And most sane Canadians have said that we need to do something about it. So now the government has explicitly said, okay, we're going to do something about the number of illegal guns crossing the border. And the thing that I thought that was important that he also mentioned, without infringing on the rights of, legal Canadian gun owners and Indigenous peoples.
Yeah.
I mean, that was explicitly said.
Yeah.
And so I think it'll be interesting to see. Now, I must admit, I don't know which bill it is, but I do know that something that both my husband and my nephew have been griping about is the fact that when it comes to, like, for example, handguns, I mean, handguns are not illegal for those that already own them. But if say, for example, if I were to just go get my gun license, I cannot buy a handgun anymore because handguns will be considered to be illegal. I don't know if the government's changing that, but once again, legal gun owners have been bitching about that. But handguns are considered restricted weapons. And so the government is trying to keep restricted weapons out of the hands of everybody, not just, criminals. So, I mean, I have my own thoughts about the whole thing about handguns. I mean, as I say, personally, I don't have a problem with it, but then I'm also not a gun owner. Whereas both my husband and my nephew, they have big problems with it. So,
Yeah.
I mean, my husband owns 2 handguns. I mean, they
Yeah.
only come out when he goes to the range. And laws say that they have to be stored in such a way and locked in such a way. And, you know, the fact that it does not come out of the case between point A and point B and, you know, all that kind of thing. I mean, Canadian gun laws are strict. And I guess I've always known it, but it wasn't until my husband got his gun license that I realized just how strict our gun laws are.
Oh, yeah. And you can only have them with you when you're doing certain things and going certain places. And yeah, it's quite. Yeah. Apparently, there's a freeze on a national freeze on buying them since October. An order in council on October 22.
Okay. So as I say, so in other words, if you are a legal gun owner in this country and you have your restricted license and you own handguns, you're not having them taken away. But you're not allowed to buy new ones. And new gun owners cannot buy them.
Yeah, transportation of handguns requires specific authorization. There's limited exemptions existing for competitive shooters, authorized personnel, and individuals with specific needs, like licensed trappers or those requiring protection in remote wilderness areas. And that, well, actually, I don't know if that Indigenous would be exempt from that or how that works, but that's a whole separate thing.
Yeah, well, the thing is that when it comes to the Indigenous, I mean, they need their hunting rifles, but it's the same thing. I mean, I'm sure you've heard the arguments down in the States about the fact that, yes, hunters are allowed to own guns, but I'm sorry, you do not need an AR-15 to shoot a moose. You just don't. So, as I say, you know, we're talking hunting rifles will be completely legal for Indigenous gun owners so they can hunt because that's a part of their culture. But the government is trying to, you know, I would venture to guess is coming that they will eventually outright ban assault weapons if they haven't already been banned. So if you see any AK-47s or AR-15s in the streets or in the commission of crimes in Canada, you know damn well where they're coming from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Apparently, Indigenous peoples are subject to the freeze from Bill C-21. However, there's actually an Aboriginal Peoples of Canada adaptations regulations firearms. So Indigenous applicants may benefit from certain adaptations in the firearms licensing process. So for example, applicants who cannot write in English or French may provide oral statements. Shared use of firearms. This is interesting. Indigenous individuals may apply for a possession-only license without owning a firearm, provided they had access to and used firearms before December 1st of 98. So, yeah. Yep. Oh, and then there's exemptions for hunting.
Which I expect. That's not going to change. That's not going to change.
No. An amnesty order effective until October 2025 allows Indigenous individuals exercising rights under Section 35 of the Constitution Act, I assume that's the hunting one, to continue using newly prohibited assault-style firearms for sustenance hunting until suitable replacements are available.
Yeah,
which I thought was interesting too. But anyway, so now.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so now they'll be heading to lay a wreath.
Yeah, at the National War Memorial, the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier.
Yeah. Yep. I'm interested to see what did they. Well, it sounded like somebody was yelling at something. I loved I loved Pomp and Circumstance.
Oh, I do too. I do too.
You know?
I mean, yes, I mean I'm not a monarchist the way that my mother was. But I mean, as someone who was born during the height of royal mania and Trudeau mania and all that kind of thing, there is just something that the pride that comes with a royal visit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unfortunate. I don't know how much longer Charles is going to be around. But whenever William takes the throne, he will not be 50 yet, which means that he, assuming good health, etc., that he could be king for a very long time, depending on what happens as far as the existence of the royal family goes. I mean, there's always talk about abolishing the monarchy. But the thing is that even in the UK, the royals are, like, even with Charles, the royals are very popular.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So.
He's 76 years old.
Yeah. And he's suffering from cancer or the after effects of cancer.
How old was the Queen when she passed?
She was 97. And that's why Charles didn't get to take the throne until he was already well into his 70s. Yeah. And you got to feel bad for him in that respect. I mean, no one expected the Queen to live for that long. And of course, the older she got and the fact that she was still in excellent health, I mean, that's why there was that conversation, 20 years ago. Let's just skip Charles and go straight to William.
Yeah.
I mean, that was never going to happen.
Yeah.
But that was the conversation at the time.
But she still had, Trump wishes he had her faculties at 97 than he does now.
Uh-huh.
I think she was more with it than brain-wise than some of our current politicians.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. I'm really disappointed I didn't have my tiara.
Yeah.
I was going to wear it, but we packed it away after Victoria Day long weekend. My husband has a little Grogu that sits outside our front door, and he dresses it up depending on the season and the holidays and whatever. So for Victoria long weekend, Grogu had a tiara and a scepter. But he put it away and locked it up, and
yep.
Well, I'm looking forward to getting the transcript of the speech.
Oh, yeah.
Because I would really like to know where it went from one to the other. And it's probably more obvious within the speech than it was. He did a very good job of transitioning because I'm not sure where it was.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there were parts that were super obvious that was his words.
Oh, yeah, yeah. When he was talking about my family and the Queen and stuff like that.
That whole thing about, into my bloodstream and straight to my heart. I mean, that was just like, oh, wow.
Well, and he has said similar types of things before.
Oh, yeah.
When he's visited Canada that, kind of holds a special place. But I was really, really taken aback at how direct he was.
Yes. Because the thing is that whether those were his words or at least the words of his office or not, I mean, even if those were the government's words, the king's office was fine with them, and he was fine saying them, which says a lot, whether he wrote them or not. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I believe some of his, I think it was him with the unprecedented challenges. He talked about repatriating the Constitution and the bilingual, inclusive, dedicated to truth and reconciliation. That didn't sound like government. But it'll be interesting because he said, or somebody said, since the Second World War, the world has never been as dangerous and unstable. So yeah, I was really pleased that for a king who's supposed to be non-political, he stuck his neck out.
Oh, he did. Well, but that said, Charles was always more political than his mother. I mean, his mother kept to, the queen, the monarch's role and whatnot. But I mean, you go back to the 70s and 80s. I mean, Charles has always been very openly an environmentalist, and he always spoke about it. Charles has never been afraid. He's never been afraid to stick his neck out politically.
Yeah, there were a few places in the government speech from the throne that I thought, oh, Danny's going to be so upset. Alberta's going to have it. Alberta's political leaders are going to have a heyday with this.
Oh, absolutely, they are.
Yeah,
especially the whole thing about Canada's treaties with its Indigenous people. I mean, that's what Bill. What bill was it? C-55.
But they won't publicly say they have an issue with that because they're not really addressing that. But where he got into leader in clean energy, fight climate change, that those are and no mention of pipelines. Alberta's leadership is going to be all over that like a dirty shirt.
Oh yeah, they are. I mean, that was never in question. The provincial government here in Alberta is, I mean, this. I mean, their entire thing has always been Ottawa bad.
Yeah.
So even if, the speech from the throne had explicitly said, we're building pipelines, they would have found something to scream about.
Yeah, but it's in the wrong place, and there's not enough of them. And in the meantime, you have too strong of regulations. And
yeah. Well, there's a lot more people out right now. Looks like.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Carney is still a popular dude, so. Now, one thing that we did not, or one person we did not see, was, we knew apparently that Pierre Poilievre was there.
Apparently, yeah.
But we only ever got mention of it. But the fact is, we didn't see Andrew Scheer there either.
No.
As the acting leader of the official opposition. He was not there.
Yeah.
And I mean, it certainly would explain why there were so few people in the House of Commons when the usher of the Black Rod went to say, hey, come on over, let's go listen to the King speak, because there's no way they could have fit 300 and some odd people into that wee little space at the entrance to the Senate.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, it's and our premier, I noticed, was not there.
Of course not. Why would she be?
Yeah.
Because once again, Ottawa bad, king or not, Ottawa bad.
Yep.
And just for reference for everybody, the usher of the Black Rod, I don't know who the name of the current holder of the title, but I believe that that used to be the role of Kevin Vickers, and he was the one when that one gunman descended upon Parliament back in 2013. He was the one. Because apparently the usher of the Black Rod actually carries a firearm because they have to be a licensed firearm holder, and he's the one that shot the dude dead. So it's just like, wow, this is not something you think about when you hear the term the usher of the Black Rod. Because it sounds so hoity-toity.
Yep. As of May 25, the position is held by John Gregory Peters, who was appointed October 1st of 13 and reappointed for a second term in 2021.
Okay.
Or October 1st, 2018.
Okay. Which makes sense because Kevin Vickers was eventually appointed as like ambassador to Ireland or something like that.
Oh, really?
He was appointed to some position, and it was in, essentially a reward, for, if you will, for protecting Parliament.
Yeah. October 22nd to 14, Kevin Vickers, who then Sergeant at Arms of the House of Commons.
Oh, Sergeant at Arms. Okay.
Played a pivotal role in ending an armed attack on Parliament Hill. During the incident, Vickers confronted and fatally shot the assailant, Michael Zehaf-Bibeau, who had entered the center block of the Parliament buildings after fatally shooting a soldier at the National War Memorial.
Mm-hmm. And that would have been Sergeant Nathan Cirillo that was shot there, that was killed.
It's important to distinguish between the roles. The Usher of the Black Rod is a senior protocol officer in the Senate, responsible for ceremonial duties, while the Sergeant at Arms oversees security in the House of Commons.
Okay, and that makes sense. That would explain why he was carrying a gun, yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing is, though, is that the Sergeant at Arms still has to wear the black robes and the funny hat, and,
Yeah. Let's see if they're saying anything interesting here.
Okay, I'll be watching for him. So far, we've seen the Governor General and her spouse, as well as Mark Carney and his spouse. They were sort of walking up the street behind me. I've kind of lost eyes on them at this time, but they were shaking hands with some people in the crowd. And of course, they are going to be meeting the King and the Queen here before their Majesties lay a wreath at the cenotaph. And there is just a real excitement in the air here. There are a lot of media here. This pen is completely packed with journalists, not just from Canada, but of course from across the world. Oh, I see some people are yelling Mark Carney and cheering. I see he's walking over there a little bit on his way to go to his location where he's going to meet their Majesties. And this, of course, is the final stop on this royal visit before they go back to the UK. So there are people lined up all down Wellington, all down Spark Street, just hoping to get it.
That would be an exhausting trip.
Yeah.
Flew in yesterday morning, leave now, or this evening, or afternoon, or whenever.
I guess.
Mm-hmm.
A day and a half.
Where the king is greeting people just on the side of the War Memorial, where he's headed right after that. Taking a little bit of time to greet people, and seems to be enjoying it.
He's just outside our set. Like, I can go and invite him in if you want.
You try that. You try that. There's a lot of body men around him. I'm not sure how that's going to go for you. You've already got an exclusive with the Prime Minister, David. Let's just.
Well, I'll give him the chair. You can have.
He's being really closely guarded.
Yeah, he is. He is indeed just behind us. There is a canal in between where he is and where we are, so a little bit complicated. But part of what he's doing, as Kate said, not the first time he will visit the National War Memorial. In fact, the third time, and it is in fact the 25th anniversary of the Unknown Soldier tomorrow. So also an important moment for that kind of commemoration, and something obviously important to the king. This part of the day will still be taken up, obviously, by the king and queen, and this moment and the excitement of those who appreciate the monarchy and its role in Canada. And
the king is smiling greatly here, so he's having a good time.
To what the government was trying to send as a
it's a beautiful day.
Again, a very short visit.
People are adoring you. What's not like
around 1 p.m. Eastern. So this is going to be a quick last stop for them before they make their way to the airport. But King Charles clearly enjoying himself there, Carolyn. I mean, this is a big part of his job, talking to his people. So you would want him to enjoy it, but he seems to be invigorated by it.
Yes, and his grandparents, King George VI and Queen Elizabeth, later the Queen Mother, had a walkabout close to this very site at the National War Memorial in 1939.
There must also be a certain amount of relief, even on his part. I mean, I know he does it for a living. I know he's the king and he was born into it and all of that kind of stuff. But there's still some sense of a weight of his position and giving that speech, etc. That it kind of looks here to me, the way it strikes me is that he's like, okay, good, got that out of the way. Now I can relax and
just greet the people. Yeah.
greeting as many people as possible.
Yeah, he did. In fact, that was referenced in the speech, in the part that the government wrote, that it was in 1957 when the Second World War was still very alive for many people. The Cold War was intensifying, and the Queen was there at that moment as well to sort of reassure Canadians at a difficult moment for the world. Obviously, circumstances are very different right now, not quite as intense, but legitimate none the same, and something that, yes, the king was requested to do, but obviously he's happy to do it here on this day.
The rapidity of the trips are truly something, though, Rosie. Landed 24 hours ago, did all of the public events yesterday that Carolyn and Adrian, and yourself were part of the coverage of, going to Lansdowne and other places, and at Rita Hall, and now delivering the speech, laying the wreath, and then boom, back off again and back across the pond, as they say, back to the United Kingdom. But the broader context that we were talking about, going back to the 1939 visit, very much then the instability was coming from historic adversaries.
Yes.
Now the issue is coming from allies, right? Even talking about the Commonwealth and being a member of the Commonwealth of Nations. I was at the Commonwealth gathering in Rwanda in 2022 when
there was definitely an emphasis on G7, on the Commonwealth, kind of putting the weight behind things.
Yeah. Oh, big time. Big time.
It's really interesting how they do that. And all those little buttons that can be pushed to the casual observer would just seem like whatever.
Yeah.
The context of the time does inform, the events and the focuses of today. The historic comparisons, it's interesting to note that it's people you would assume would be allies that are causing the disruption instead of just traditional adversaries like in the past.
Okay, and the King and Queen, they're meeting with some veterans before they make their way to the National War Memorial. Kate, do you see the King now? Have you spotted him?
I can see the King. I have been watching the King as he just makes his way to the War Memorial, and there's just a lot of excitement here, Rosie. I mean, I've been saying it all morning, but it's really true. He's taking his time there, speaking with the veterans, but before he did that, he spoke with a number of people who have been waiting for him, in some cases, hours. And of course, as we've been talking about, this is the final stop for him before he goes back on the plane to the United Kingdom. So he has been taking a lot of time speaking with people, and so has the Queen as they have been, making their way. It's actually, as we know, just a very short walk from the Senate building to the War Memorial, and it speaks to the amount of time he's been taking, talking to people on his way here, that it has taken the amount of time that it has. But once he does get here, he'll be meeting with he'll be greeted rather by the Prime Minister, the Governor General. We saw them on their approach, as well as the Chief of the Defence Staff and the RCMP Commissioner, before he lays a wreath here at the War Memorial. So that's something we're watching for. I see he's now finished speaking with the veterans, at least in my eyesight. There might be more on the other side, but there are, quite a bit of international media here, and we're all kind of trying to look and see what's happening. So that's kind of the picture from the ground where I am.
Okay, thank you for that, Kate. He was just greeted by the Commissioner of the RCMP, Mike Duhem, and the Chief of the Defence Staff, Jenny Carignan, as he's being walked now to the front of the National War Memorial, where this part of the ceremony will take place. A little bit like what you would see at Remembrance Day, perhaps, in a much smaller format.
Oh, snarf.
What?
What?
Did you say something? It sounded like,
Yeah, I went, oh, schnarf.
That's what I thought I heard. I was busy looking on the map to see where the memorial is in relation to where they were, etc.
Okay, I'll be right back.
Yeah. Oh, I like your background. This always gets me.
Yes, Marcus. Right.
Well, that was quite the ending with the planes overhead and everything.
Oh, no kidding. I mean, this is not something like this, having a royal visit here and whatnot. Like, I mean, this is not a normal event at all. So the government has really been playing up Canadian identity and our ties to the monarchy and our own sovereignty, and the fact that, yes, we do have war vets as well, also served with honor and died.
Yeah. Oh, that one vet, I'm not even sure which one he was, but he looked like he was going to cry, and looked that way just as I was thinking to myself, wow, the things that those men, those vets have experienced and seen, and friends they've lost. And then I looked at him and he looks like he's going to cry, and I'm just like, oh. I think it was that one there. Yeah, him.
The tall one or the one beside him?
The first one on this side. Because he kind of looks like he's going to cry anyway.
Yeah.
He has that kind of profile.
Yeah, well, because I'm just trying to think. I mean, World War II has literally been 80 years ago. So, yeah, I mean, yeah. So I guess there could still be some World War II vets around, but man, they'd be approaching 100 years old or older.
Yeah, I was just watching a thing on the liberation of Netherlands, and I had what country that was, but they still honor
the King and Queen making their last
liberation.
moments of chit chat and small talk with
there were
some
a
veterans
couple
here
every year
at the National
vets
War
go there
Memorial.
for that.
After doing another inspection of the
This
guard,
time I think
laying a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier, having a moment of silence too at this important location for Canada, and indeed with a strong attachment to the monarchy.
I mean, I watch something like this, the laying of the wreath, the fact that the king and the queen are here to lay wreath. There is a moment of silence, the buglers, all that kind of thing. And then the place that my mind immediately goes right now is during the convoy in 2022, and the fact that those convoyers were pissing on the memorial and stuff. And I'm just like, that, oh my God, I was so angry about that at the time. And I think about it now, and it makes me angry again.
Yeah.
Prime Minister thanking the king. I heard the Prime Minister's wife say, I'm going to make sure he delivers on this now. So there's one person who's going to hold him to account.
Not only the King of England, but your wife.
General and her husband.
And Rosie, this is where they'll all say goodbye, because while they accompanied him, the king, throughout this and much of it, they will not be taking.
Yeah, I think it's amazing that, these serving members of the RCMP and the Canadian Armed Forces were encouraged to wear like their ribbon skirts, and like I'm Indigenous and I'm proud of it.
Escorting is the right word, but accompanying the king and queen to the airport.
Yeah, we are. A very warm reception, I would say, here for the king and queen.
Oh, shaking hands with the media? Oh my!
This moment in time, again, a different moment, right, for this country, and so perhaps a renewed sense of patriotism for those people who believe the monarchy is a big part of this country. Not everyone does, obviously. Having a hard time getting them in the car there. Seems to want to shake a few more hands.
Yeah, they don't want to leave.
We also had that beautiful fly past, which on a gorgeous day here in the nation's capital, couldn't have asked for a better day for this.
Yeah, I thought that was cool that the snowbirds did a flyover.
Okay, are you ready for this?
What?
As of May 2025, there are approximately 1,592 Canadian veterans of the Second World War still alive. With an average age of 99.
Uh-huh. Which makes sense.
Yeah, this marks a significant decline from earlier years. For instance, in 21, there were an estimated 20,300 surviving vets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nope, they finally got them into the car.
Yep. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing what Premier Carney has to say. CBC is going to be having an interview with him. But I don't think we need to cover that right now.
No, this was all about the king.
Yeah, 2.5 hours of covering it is enough.
Yep, I think so.
Well, there you get a little bit better of an overview for those who haven't been to Ottawa.
Yeah. Well, it has been a great many decades since I've been to Ottawa, and I would love to go back.
I was there between 2013 and 17 when I was on council. And it was I went to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Conference. It was in winter time, the depth of winter. It was so cold. I didn't get to do quite as much touring as I was hoping for, but what do you do? I think I was across the bridge from the main building, I think. Oh, there must be such a sense of relief.
Yeah. Yes.
A sense of relief, and oh my goodness, it's over already.
Mm-hmm.
Who's that they're talking to?
That's Governor General Mary Simon.
Oh, okay. I didn't know what she looked like.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. As my mother would say, and what does her mother call her? Okay, well.
I think we're good. That was a lot.
That was a lot, but you know what? I enjoyed it more than I anticipated.
Yeah, actually, I was too. I mean, I was excited when it was announced that the king was coming to open Parliament. I was excited about that, and I'm very glad I actually got to watch it live.
Yeah.
You know.
What is that?
That is my phone ringing, and yeah, I should probably get going here. So.
Yes, some of us have work to do.
All righty.
Well, thank you very much for humoring me, and yeah, this was fun.
Okay.
We'll have to do a live one again soon.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, bye all.
Okay, bye all.